Imagine waking up in Rome, 380 AD. The city stirs as the first rays of sunlight spill over marble columns and tiled rooftops, illuminating a world on the brink of transformation. For generations, your family's faith was a secret, whispered in hidden rooms, marked by stories of persecution and hope. You grew up hearing tales of ancestors who risked everything to gather in the shadows, clutching symbols of a forbidden faith. Today, everything changes. The emperor has declared your God, the Christian God, the only true God of the Roman Empire. The news spreads like wildfire, echoing through crowded markets and echoing down marble corridors. The faith once outlawed is now the law of the land. The temples that once bustled with offerings and incense now stand silent, their altars cold and deserted. The Edict of Thessalonica, issued by Emperor Theodosius, didn't just legalize Christianity, it made Nicene Christianity the state's only legitimate faith. This was more than a decree. It was a seismic shift in the soul of an empire. Overnight, temples that defined Rome's skyline became relics, and the old gods were banished. Statues of Jupiter and Mars, once revered, now gathered dust and shadows. For Christians, it was a moment of triumph. Their prayers answered, their God victorious. Tears of joy and disbelief mingled as families embraced, daring to hope for a future free from fear. But for many, it was a time of confusion and fear. The spiritual world had been redrawn in an instant. Centuries-old traditions were swept away, leaving uncertainty in their wake. What happens when a faith built on humility and service suddenly holds power? How does it reconcile its teachings with the responsibilities of rule? How does a religion of the oppressed act as the new authority? The leaders who once hid in shadows now walked openly in marble halls, tasked with guiding an empire. The day Christianity became Rome's official religion was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new era, filled with both promise and peril. It was the start of a new, complex chapter for both faith and empire. Old beliefs and new hopes collided in the streets, shaping the destiny of millions. The world had been turned upside down. The familiar was replaced by the unknown, and every Roman, Christian or not, had to find their place in this transformed society. And nothing would ever be the same. The dawn of a new God had arrived, forever altering the course of history. Why does a decree from 380 AD still matter, echoing through the centuries to shape the world we know today? What made this single proclamation so powerful that its effects are still felt in our daily lives, in our laws, and in our beliefs? The Edict of Thessalonica, issued by Emperor Theodosius I, fused the immense power of the Roman Empire with the rising authority of Christianity. This moment didn't just change a religion, it reshaped the very foundation of Western civilization, setting a new course for history. Suddenly, the church was no longer just a spiritual refuge, it became the heart of public life. Bishops and priests, once on the margins, now gained real political influence, helping to guide the direction of entire communities and even empires. Roman laws began to reflect Christian values for the first time. Concepts like marriage, charity, and sin were no longer just private matters. They became legal concerns, woven into the fabric of society and enforced by the state. Christianity also introduced a revolutionary sense of time. History was now seen as a grand narrative, a story with a clear beginning, a meaningful middle, and an ultimate end, giving people a new way to understand their place in the world. When the mighty city of Rome eventually fell, thinkers like Augustine argued that true citizenship was not of this world, but in the city of God, a spiritual community that transcended any earthly empire. The idea of a united Christendom, the rise of awe-inspiring medieval cathedrals, and even today's ongoing debates about the role of religion in government, all of these can be traced back to this pivotal moment in history. The Edict of Thessalonica forced the world to confront a profound question. What should be the relationship between state power and personal belief? How much should governments shape the faith of their people? That question, first asked over 1,600 years ago, still shapes our societies, our laws, and our conversations about freedom and identity. The consequences of that single day in 380 AD continue to echo through time, reminding us that history's turning points never truly end. They become part of who we are. To truly grasp the shock of 380 AD, we must first understand the world it shattered, a world where countless gods watched over every aspect of life. and public rituals shaped the very rhythm of society. The ancient Roman world was a tapestry woven from the threads of tradition, belief, and ceremony. Every Roman act, from the highest politics in the Senate to the humblest work in the fields, was intimately tied to the favor of the gods. Success and failure, prosperity and disaster, were all believed to hinge on maintaining good relations with the divine. Religion was not a private matter of personal faith, but a public duty. Temples and grand festivals were not just spiritual events, they were acts of patriotism, binding the community together in shared purpose and identity. Rome's religious system was famously flexible, absorbing gods and rituals from every corner of its vast empire. This adaptability allowed Rome to unite a diverse population under a common spiritual framework. Soldiers stationed in Egypt might worship both Isis and Mars, while merchants in Gaul honored a blend of Celtic and Roman deities. This blending of traditions created a rich, multicultural religious landscape. This inclusivity helped Rome thrive for centuries, but it came with a price. Participation in state cults was expected of everyone. Public rituals were seen as essential to the well-being of the empire. That's where conflict began, with Jews and especially Christians, who insisted on worshiping only one God and rejected all others. Their refusal to join in the public rituals set them apart. Christianity was new, exclusive, and growing fast. Its followers met in secret, forming tight-knit communities that seemed mysterious and even threatening to outsiders. To many Romans, this new faith threatened the peace of the gods and with it, the very stability of Rome itself. The old ways seemed to be under siege. For the empire, Christianity wasn't just a strange new belief, it was a direct challenge to Roman identity, unity, and the traditions that had held the empire together for centuries. The old religious marketplace, once bustling with gods and rituals, was about to close forever. The familiar world of shared worship was fading. The stage was set for confrontation, a clash not just of beliefs, but of entire ways of life and visions for the future. And after this turning point, the Roman Empire and the world would never be the same again. Why did Christianity spread so powerfully, even under persecution? It offered what Roman religion didn't: a personal relationship with a loving God, forgiveness, and hope. The Christian community was radically equal, caring for the poor and sick, especially during plagues. Martyrs' courage inspired onlookers. Their deaths drew more converts. Christianity attracted sharp minds, building a theology that rivaled Greek philosophy. The faith's emotional appeal, social support, and intellectual rigor made it unstoppable. Persecution only fueled its growth. The whisper in hidden rooms became a roar across the empire. Rome could no longer ignore it. Everything changed with Emperor Constantine. In 312 AD, after a vision of the cross, he won a decisive battle and credited the Christian God. The Edict of Milan in 313 AD legalized Christianity and ended persecution, but didn't make it the state religion. Constantine favored the church, building basilicas, granting privileges, and calling councils. Christianity became a path to power, but paganism persisted. For decades, Rome was religiously mixed. Old temples still open, sacrifices performed, and senators swearing by ancient gods. The empire was in flux, with Christianity rising but not yet dominant. Constantine's actions set the stage for a final, decisive shift. The old and new faiths coexisted uneasily. The balance would soon tip. The next act would change everything. The final act came in 380 AD. Theodosius and his co-emperors issued the Edict of Thessalonica, ending religious coexistence. All citizens were ordered to follow Nicene Christianity. Other beliefs were condemned as heresy. The edict made Christianity not just favored, but mandatory. Bishops of Rome and Alexandria became the standard for correct belief. Dissenters, pagans, Jews, and non-Nicene Christians were now outsiders, even enemies of the state. The state enforced doctrine, crushing religious diversity. Bishops gained legal power to suppress rivals and dismantle paganism. The fusion of imperial authority and Christian orthodoxy was complete. The spiritual landscape of antiquity was bulldozed for a new Christian order. The consequences were immediate and profound. Rome had chosen its faith and closed the door on all others. For Nicene Christians, the edict was a dream realized, priests gained status, churches flourished, and faith was vindicated. For pagan priests, it was disaster, their gods outlawed, temples closed, and traditions erased. Philosophers who cherished ancient wisdom saw Christianity as hostile to reason. Friendships fractured, debates turned to accusations. Even some Christians felt uneasy, watching their humble faith become entangled with wealth and power. The church's triumph brought new temptations. Pride, luxury, and political intrigue. Families and communities were divided. The victory of Christianity was bittersweet, raising questions about its true nature. Was this the faith of the poor, or now the faith of the powerful? The transformation was as unsettling as it was triumphant. The cost of victory was a new kind of struggle. The edict's impact was swift and sweeping. Pagan temples lost funding, ancient rituals ended, and even the Olympic Games were banned. The spiritual diversity of Rome vanished, replaced by religious compulsion. Art, law, and daily life became Christian. Church and state fused, creating medieval Christendom. Popes crowned kings and shaped nations. The unity Theodosius imposed came at a high price, centuries of conflict, crusades, and inquisitions. Christianity's rise ensured its survival, but also bound it to state power and violence. The Edict of 380 AD stands as a monument to the tangled relationship between belief and authority. Was it the triumph of faith or the conquest of faith by empire? Perhaps it was both.